Welcome to this week's edition of Coach Prep. Coach Don and I are working on Zoom this week. Got an interesting topic for you. We're going to talk about how we defend the delayed steal. So when we're on defense and the other team's in a situation where they're using the delayed steal, how do we defend that? So before we get into that topic, though, first let's talk about patreon.com/everythingfastpitch. We would love for more people to become patrons. We've got a great group of patrons that have been supporting us for a long time. We would love to see that number continue to grow. We've had a few new people come on here in the last couple of weeks and are helping to support the podcast. If you see value in what we're doing, if you want us to be able to continue to do the podcast moving into the future, we would love to see some more people come on board as patrons. So go to patreon.com/everythingfastpitch. So Don, let's lay the ground rules for what we mean when we talk about a delayed steal. So a delayed steal to me is anytime a base runner is attempting to steal a base, but not going right on the initial pitch. So a straight steal, the pitcher throws the pitch, the runner tries to steal. So she's going as soon as the pitch is thrown. Whereas a delayed steal could be, delayed for any number of reasons. Maybe it's a first and third situation and we're just trying to trick the defense into making a throw. Maybe it's a situation where the base runner is trying to just lull the defense into a false sense of security and then break late and try to put pressure on them that way. But the idea of defending a delayed steal is something I think is really interesting because it's something that comes up quite often. The trend more and more seems to keep going on more on the idea of allowing base runners to steal bases or not worry about it in certain situations as much as it is having a way to defend it. So the first delayed steal I wanted to talk about, Don, is something that I know is near and dear to your heart, and that is a situation where it's just a base runner taking their normal leadoff and then seeing something from the defense, recognizing something from the defense that tells them that I've got a chance to steal this base, even though I'm not going on the initial pitch. So the first one that I see quite often is catchers that when they're receiving the ball are really lazy in their approach. They kind of catch it and just kind of flip it back to the pitcher. We kind of get into this rhythm where we're not doing a very good job of holding the runners or checking the runners on base, and then being kind of nonchalant or real casual in how we're returning the ball to the pitcher.
Yeah, no, I like what you're saying there, Tori. And again, if we can be conscious of how the defense is acting and reacting each pitch, we can use that to our advantage. If shortstop and second base, after there's no steal on the pitch, they turning away from the play to go back to where they initiate their fielding position, or are they not paying attention? Are they too far away because we're expecting the hitter to pull the ball if it's a left-handed batter and second base is, shading a lot towards right, and then the shortstop turns away from the play when she's going back to her position? There's a lot of different factors that might encourage you to do that. To me, when I think of the delayed steal as well, I'm trying to tack in there, how well versed is the defense? If it's a younger group, that making them throw the ball and do a rundown, are our chances of an error being made great? Or are we talking a real high-end 18U group that is extremely snappy, and we're going to have to play a little bit more on that defensive attentiveness to make that delayed steal happen? Especially if we're the only runner on base, then that might be something that some of the younger players get to take advantage of a little bit more than the older.
So the first rule is to prevent, on the defensive side, to prevent the other team from even thinking about the delayed steal as a tactic. Everybody needs to know what their jobs are in that situation. So the catcher's job, first and foremost, obviously, after they catch the ball, is to check the runners and make sure that they're aware of what the runners are doing. And if they have to, make a movement, some sort of an action that makes that runner commit to going or going back. So whether it's checking the runner, visually, the fake throw, the running at the runner, whatever it is, depending upon the level and what your defensive philosophy is, I think we need to be aware of those options and looking to do something like that. As you said, Don, we need to make sure that whoever's covering the bases in these different situations is getting where they're supposed to be and staying there as long as they need to keep the offensive team in check so that they know that they can't implement the delayed steal. The next piece of the puzzle is, the pitcher, when she gets the ball back into the circle, has got to be aware of what's going on, because the other one that you see all the time is a pitcher who's mad about a call, mad about a walk, frustrated with an error or something like that. And so, she gets the ball back from the catcher, but isn't paying enough attention to the base runner. And so I think sometimes it's the trifecta. The catcher's a little nonchalant, the pitcher's a little bit distracted, and the infielders don't do a really good job of covering their bases. But a good base running team is going to notice any and all of those weaknesses and sooner or later take advantage of it. Now, they might not do it every time they've got a runner on base, but they might be doing it in the sixth or seventh inning when the game's on the line. They might be doing it in just the most heartbreaking situation where it really hurts your team the most. We always talk about throwing, catching, all those kinds of things, but I think if the catcher does a good job of receiving the ball, returning it to the pitcher does a good job of receiving the ball and being ready to make plays if she needs to, and everybody else is where they're supposed to be, the delayed steal disappears from the other team's arsenal. Now, I think a good base running team is always probing and poking and seeing if there's an opportunity to do something like that, but I think it's something that you can do a really good job defensively of solving it. And the one that I've seen a couple of times this year was exactly what we were talking about, where the catcher was a little nonchalant, the pitcher was a little bit lackadaisical. And I've seen a couple of kids delayed steal home was a big turning point, a big momentum shift in those games. And so obviously it's something that some teams are looking to take advantage of offensively and defensively. We need to do a good job of those fundamental pieces. The other place with the delayed steal that we see all the time, and we've talked about first and third defenses plenty of times. I don't know that we need to go into too much of a review of that. But again, the same idea holds true. If we've got a runner at third and that runner from first is delayed stealing or walking to second or whatever it is, that a catcher who makes a good throw back to the pitcher and defensive players who are where they're supposed to be is again going to create opportunities for us to get outs, whether it's because the runner from third violates the look back rule or because we're really good at waiting and letting the play develop and then making a good quick throw where we get that runner trying to advance to second before the runner from third can really get very far. So I think it's a combination of those two circumstances. I think it all comes back to the catcher doing a great job, the pitcher doing her job, and then the infielders being where they're supposed to be. And let's just put a little bit of responsibility on the outfielders too to make sure that they're moving to back those plays up. So just in case we try to make a play when a player's on a delayed steal, that everybody's where they're supposed to be so we can keep something bad from happening.
So I'm going to say, Tori, please, 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 coaches, talk about the look back rule, especially for the younger ones that may not have experienced it as much. It's important for everybody to understand what the rules are with that. That can prevent a lot of chaos happening, against us. Also, too, pitchers, they're creatures of habit. If they are used to receiving the ball from the catcher and turning away from the runner at third base, we kind of want to make sure that that's you had mentioned the delay steal home, and it's a perfect situation if you receive the ball as a pitcher and turn towards the first base side and have your back to that runner. A really, really quick kid can cause chaos, especially if the catcher, after they throw the ball back, they turn down or turn back to look to where they're going to be, situating themselves for the next pitch, or looking over for a signal or whatever it might be if they're distracted in any way. And that's a perfect time for somebody that's quick to take advantage of it. But knowing the rules and make sure that we have good habits receiving the ball, and I think we're a little bit less likely to have trouble.
The moral to the story today is, coaches, when we're talking about the delayed steal, from an offensive perspective, I would spend time with every team at every level, teaching them the things that they should be looking for that create opportunities for them to get a free base. And in that teaching of what they should be doing offensively, I think it reminds a lot of kids of the things that they need to be doing defensively to keep it from happening. And so if you're talking to your players all the time about how the delayed steal could be a great tool, then your players are also going to understand defensively why it's so important that they keep it from happening to them. So, I love the first and third plays. I love the delayed steals. I love all that kind of stuff that tests our players' softball IQ and reinforces the fundamentals that we're always talking about. But I just thought the delayed steal was a fun topic to talk about today. And so that's going to wrap up this week Coach Prep. Please make sure you reach out to us with questions, comments, or suggestions for topics at everythingfastpitch@gmail.com or fastpitchprep@gmail.com. We're always interested in what you're curious about because we want to talk about the stuff that you really want us to cover. And we've been getting a lot of great suggestions and feedback from listeners lately, so we want to keep that momentum up. Also, please send us Player of the Week nominations for the Everything Fast Pitch podcast. Again, the same email addresses, everythingfastpitch@gmail.com or fastpitchprep@gmail.com. Go to the fastpitchprep.com website or your Square Cuts training discs there. They're $49.95 a dozen. If we want to get them to you for Christmas, we need to get those orders in here in the next week or so, and then we'll get them shipped out to you so you get them in plenty of time. Also want to make sure that you go to the fastpitchprep.com website to check out the YouTube channel and the blog posts. There's tons and tons of information there, and we certainly want you to take advantage of that. And as I said at the beginning, please become a patron. Go to patreon.com/everythingfastpitch. Thank you to the patrons that have been supporting us and doing such a great job, but we'd love to see some more people coming on board. So for Coach Don McKinley and our producer, Stan Lewis, this is Coach Torrey. Thanks for listening. We'll talk to you again next week.